Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it Epcot. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
All right, so joining us this month on the podcast is David Coolidge. David is a watercolor artist, and he had the pleasure to be at Lake Buena Vista very early on displaying his works, and we're chatting with him tonight. And David, welcome to the show.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you both.
So I understand that you've been an artist for a number of years, and pretty much all your life after studying art, and you took a trip down to Florida, I guess, in the early 70s, where you spoke with them and asked about their works a little bit?
I'll tell you what happened.
How did it work?
We came down about less than a year after it opened with two small boys in 1972, and we enjoyed it so much we were dying to come back. Well, we had a spring break in 1974, and came on the auto train.
Right.
And had a fun time doing that. While we were here, and we were staying at the Polynesian resort, I thought I'd heard that they were developing an area where they would have places to lease. There were townhouses and tree houses, and I thought, well, that'd be fun afternoon activity to all of us go over there and see what they were doing. And as they were showing us the townhouses, and I think they had a 55-year lease, and that would still be going if they still did that.
Right.
But across the way, the real estate agent that was showing us the property said, I asked them what they were doing across the pond there, and they said, well, that's where we're building a shopping center. And somehow in the discussion it came up they were going to have an art gallery. And I said, well, I'm an artist. I'd certainly consider wanting to have my work down here at that, because we enjoy coming here.
Right.
Lo and behold, that next January of 1975, I got an invitation to have their first one-man show in what was called the Colonnade d'Arts, and everything sort of came after that, fell into place after that invitation.
Wow.
And I think it was probably the end of June of 1975, we piled everything in a rented U-Haul trailer and brought 30 paintings down to Lake Buena Vista.
That is
now,
fantastic.
before we get to that part, so what was it like when you went over there first when they were trying to sell it? Was anything being developed yet at that time when it was
I just saw sort of the superstructure. There were some roofs on, so this is like March of 74. And when we came down a year and a few months later, it was all, it looked like it was up and running and complete. But I have a aerial view of it, what it looked like then in 1975 versus what it looks like now, and it's hard to recognize.
Yeah,
The footprint's a little bit the same towards that. I think that's preview, whatever the road is that comes past the old preview center. That's pretty much the same where it used to, not the roadway particularly, but there's the place where you have commemorative pins or the Disney pins. That pavilion is still pretty much the same place, but the extent down towards the Cirque du Soleil, and then now with Disney Springs, it's entirely different.
Yeah, it's amazing how that has expanded and expanded and expanded.
Oh yeah, and what's fun is I have some photos. We somehow got into a routine of certain things we like to do. So when we'd go back over the years, we'd have the boys stand in the same place, and so you can see it just change around you.
That's really cool.
Now, in case our listeners are wondering, where have you heard this name David Coolidge before? Well, we've mentioned you, David, on many of our podcasts, referencing your films. We kept promising our listeners that you'd be on this episode talking about Lake Buena Vista. And you also, a lot of your works have been in the Smucker's Plate series, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
in
you
fact,
may have...
I can't tell you because it's a surprise. I don't think they're on the market or in the package yet, but within the last 30 days, they approved this year's Christmas plate. So
cool.
That's in the works.
That's awesome. And we got to know you because we restored some of your films and the Amtrak Auto Train and
fabulous. And what a thrill to have that in such high quality. It's better than in the early 80s. I regret it now. In the early 80s, I got a camcorder, and they weren't. You had to light balance them or white balance them, and I've got some pretty rough video. But to be able to go back and restore those wonderful Super 8 color, and I was fortunate to have a little magnetic strip that had a soundtrack on it, so the sound isn't that great, but it certainly gives you a little idea of what you were hearing on the parades and some of the wonderful jazz music that you'd hear and so forth.
Yep. We'll definitely post a link to the videos that we've restored of yours that we have online, and I know we've referenced them a lot of times. So it's a great joy to be able to share those with everybody, and I'm sure your families.
Well, you were a real find to get that done. I couldn't believe it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. So fast forward here to 1975. You go down to the Culinary des Arts, and what was that like? It was a one-man show, right? This wasn't the Festival of the Masters. This was the David Coolidge show, if you will.
It was pretty exciting because as a kid, of course, like most kids in the 50s, they watched the Mickey Mouse Club, and I thought it'd be great to be somehow tied in with the Disney artists that either do animation or design or whatever, and this just sort of fell into my hands or fell into my work schedule to have this exhibit. So it was sort of like a dream come true and not, interfere too much with the career I had going up north where we were living. So it was really, really great. And to get in on the first part of that whole development of Lake Buena Vista and what they were trying to do there as a extension of the Disney Resort. Right. It was a lot different in the sense that it was sort of out of the way, and there were very few people, and of course that didn't make a whole lot of sense for that valuable property. So what I was told by the buyer that was in charge of the art gallery and the antiques gallery, and I guess there was at one time a sort of an antique shop in Liberty Square in the Magic Kingdom, and this fellow did the bind for Disneyland, and when they built Disney World, he was asked to come out and buy for those shops, and then got involved in this shopping village. And he told me, now I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but he said because of this tremendous success of Mary Poppins, that there were countries, I remember him talking about Indonesia, had sold a lot of tickets to Mary Poppins in Indonesia. And in order for Disney to get their money out of there without a heavy taxation, one way they could do it is to bring goods that were made and sold in Indonesia. So this gallery that I had in my watercolors had a lot of interesting Asian artifacts, or there were some Indonesian puppets and different things like that they had brought to get some of the money they had made in that part of the country.
Right.
Or the world.
That is really fascinating, because we've talked before on the show about how in the past, especially the shops at Walt Disney World and certainly there in the Village had such diverse items. It wasn't just all Disney merchandise. It was literally stuff from all over the world. And it seemed like there were buyers purposely going out and finding very unique things. So
and I gather that a lot of even the seed money for getting the property around Orlando came from some of the wealth that Disney had made from that one movie. I don't know how true that is, but I'm sure it gave them some sense of where they were headed and what they could take on as a financial obligation.
I have read before that was a huge thing for them.
I don't know if in the little note that I had sent to you, that it's hard to believe is the way time marches on, but when I was there, that was the summer of 1975, as I mentioned, and there was a Damascene shop right next. There was a craft shop where they inlay gold on these little jewel boxes, and it was really fine craftsmanship that you could see there. And then there was a glass etchings, and I think that shop is still there, the Arribas Brothers.
Yep.
I think that's it. And I went over there, and this fellow was working on a wonderful piece of Damascene, and I thought I saw a name on it that looked familiar. He was making a 20th anniversary gift for Lillian Disney, because it was the 20th anniversary of the opening of Disneyland the summer I was there.
That's awesome. That he making it right there in front of you.
I thought, and when I said Lillian Disney, I was thinking, well, that's an interesting name, because at that point, the Empress Lily hadn't even been built yet. That was that's on the lake there. That's now even something else, the Fulton Crab House, or whatever it's become. So look at that. So something actually being made on Disney property for a gift to Lillian Disney. I mean, that blows my mind. So well, cool. There were lots of little interesting things that made it all sort of fun and hard to believe the way when we go over there now. It is like walking into a different world.
Right.
We still enjoy it though. We're anxious to go back because they're still in the middle of renovating and adding to that Disney Springs.
So go ahead, Dave. I was going to say, do you remember that silver Taj Mahal music box thing that they always had for sale there?
Isn't that amazing? When Todd said we might be doing this, I went back. I've got an extensive slide collection, and I got into my 1975 slides, and I have a picture of our oldest son standing right next to that, and I just scanned it today. Taj Mahal.
I remember that, and that giant chess set.
Now that I don't know that I remember that. They had suits of armor, and there were all sorts of things that were just a variety of things.
They had some very unique items there.
They sure did.
David would love to share those pictures, and I know Brian is a slide collector, and he would love to see those. So if you've got one or two of those pictures you could share with us, that would be
sure. And the other thing that I ran across was Discovery Island, when at one time one of the annual reports for Disney said they were going to make it into like a treasure island where Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver would end up. And they put in the annual report some fancy galleon that moored right next to the island, and it turned out they just put a sort of a wreck of some ship they made look like it was a shipwreck there, and I think they got rid of that because I think kids climbing around on that could have been dangerous. But I'll send you that too.
Yeah, it's actually still there today, if you can believe it.
It is. I didn't know that. I thought that whole Discovery Island was sort of abandoned, like river country.
Yeah, it was, and the boat that you're speaking of that they ran aground, they had as we talked about a little earlier in the episode, Pablo Cruz. That's where they did their little stint on the was it the 10th anniversary show, I think, or 8th anniversary, something like that.
Oh, but the
boat is still there if you know where to look amongst the weeds and overgrown bush.
Well, I guess it could. Yeah, I guess it could get overgrown because it wasn't big. It was not at all like what they were picturing that was going to be in the annual report.
It's astounding that entire everywhere there was white sandy beach there. It's just overgrowth. It's just overgrowth now. Like the beaches are totally obliterated. It's just plants right out to the
I
water's
remember
edge.
now that memories are coming back as we talk, but I remember I did a painting. So they had that near where that boat was, they had a pen, and it was a rather large natural-looking place where they had a bunch of flamingos that were waiting around, and I did a painting of those at one point many years ago.
That's cool.
That's actually a question I had. So as big as a fan as you are, I was looking through a lot of your pieces, and you are certainly well-traveled, so I understand that you have a wealth of things to choose from as far as subject matter goes. But did you ever do any watercolors of stuff there at Walt Disney World? The flamingos? Anything else?
You know, it's funny that one, and I'll see something and I'll think, I wonder what it would look like if I did it in such a way that it would really interest me. And that must have been one. I did one from the little jutty of land that comes out from the Polynesian resort, which now I think they've built some villas or little like dock houses almost out in the Seven Seas Lagoon there. I did a painting there looking across to the Magic Kingdom, just a small sketch. But no, I started out doing landscapes and architectural cityscapes, places of somewhat historic interest. I spent a school year in Rome, Italy, and started plein air painting there and doing some of the architecture there. And when we came back, this is many years ago, came back to the States, then I just sort of picked up there and really never got into too much in the Florida genre. And I don't do a whole lot of Southwest Florida where we live, but I certainly enjoy the light here, and I do occasionally do things of the Everglades and so forth, but not really so much of the Disney area.
Yeah, it's funny because now, fast forward and I totally understand where you're coming from. It makes total sense to me. And there probably wasn't anybody doing that stuff. Funny, it's now you go walk through the parks, there's artists like David Dost. You see people that are sort of like on a returning schedule that come in and do work that gets displayed there. And a lot of them are doing more architectural stuff now. So you were just ahead of your time by a little bit.
You mentioned something before we got on the podcast today about the Festival of the Masters. When we went back in the early 90s, and there was a current Festival of the Masters show going on, and I saw some interesting work, and I thought, well, it's a lot different than having a one-man show and of course that gallery and the antique shop were changed within 2 or 3 years after their opening, so they hadn't been around for a long time, the gallery, and it was a perfect thing for that village to have an art fair. And I think it was in 2007, so we're talking 32 years after I had the one-man show there, that I thought, well, I ought to at least attempt to show my work up there after all those years. And I had a little display area for the length of that, and it's sort of sad now because I think with the changing plan of Downtown Disney or Disney Springs, they no longer have the Festival of the Masters. But I did have a painting, and since our first experience was at the Polynesian Resort, I did do a painting of that wonderful fountain and garden as you enter and I did a sort of a commemorative painting of that and gave it to our children and their spouses for our 40th anniversary. And this is 10 years ago, so we've just had our 50th.
Oh,
congratulations.
Yeah, so I must say, the Disney property has been influential on a portion of what I've done in my career.
With with that waterfall gone now, I'm sure you'd be a lot of interest in that painting these days.
Well, and it's one of a few that I've had giclee prints made of, so I have them available.
Oh, okay. We're gonna have to get that information. From you at the end of the show, because I bet you we can probably blow out what you have left.
Very easily. So, David, other than when you were down there, my understanding is you did get to stay in some of the villas, and the film that I restored of you and your family, you were swimming in the pool there. You were at the clubhouse behind. Now I forget. I don't recall. Did Disney put you up in that? Did you guys pay? Did they?
Well, yeah, no. It was just ideal. They put us up in a townhouse. I think it was about a week, and they gave us tickets. The buyer, the fellow that was the manager in charge of the gallery, took our whole family to that wonderful restaurant that was probably about where the Rainforest Cafe is now, and they just treated us royally. And I got to, because I stayed at the exhibit during the day. I only felt that was fair for anybody that would come, that they could meet the artist. So they were very loose about when I had to be there, but I stayed there during the day, and I got to know a lot of the people that worked in that area, and one of the fellows was the security guard. So the family would go over to the park or spend time at the pool, and then in the evening, the security guard would offer to take me over to the park, and I'd go in the back way and see all the magic that's going on behind the main street there. And I'd meet up with them, and then we'd come back all together. It was just a fabulous way they put us up, and were able to make that a really nice occasion for us.
Now, which of the villas did they have you in? There were three.
We were on one, what I would call that looked right out to the lagoon, and there was what I would call a quiet pool. It was one of the smaller pools, and then sometimes we would go over. I think there was a little bit larger pool that was more in a courtyard area of other townhouse complexes or groups of townhouses. And I have a feeling the one we stayed in is one that they put people in that were there, that were, had some, rather than a corporate sponsor's a townhouse, we were in a Disney one that I think they would loan out to people they had there. And then I think, as I recall, they set up any kind of reservation because we went over to that wonderful clubhouse and had a nice dinner there. They did that all the. Now I think they did this for everybody because it shows you how times have changed. But they had our name embossed on matchbooks at the dining table or our reservation table when we came. So I don't think you'd find matches for cigarettes today.
No.
Well, so I think that just shows that was a big deal. I think you were a big deal to have a one-man show there. That's quite something.
It's rather remarkable because I just probably was the first one that got in line.
So how, based on what David's described, there were three villas that we know of down there, David. There was the tree house, and then there were the townhome style ones, which were kind of gray with the brown roofs, and then there were the brown ones that were all wood that matched the Lake Buena Vista. So which of those do you think you were in, if you recall?
Well, what I'll do is I'll send you a picture of the one that we were in, and I just found it today along with the Taj Mahal. I found the one of our station wagon with the U-Haul behind it out in front of one. So that would be the one that we stayed in, or very nearby, one of the nearby units. And then there's another one that I have that I took. I think there was a little boat that would come over and get me and take me over to the village. And I think I took this one photo from that boat so you could see where the pool was and where the unit was that we were staying in.
Right.
Oh, it was just a 5-10 minute boat ride from the townhouse over to the gallery.
Right. Yeah, because I think at that time they had the vacation villas, the fairway villas, and then the tree houses. So you're either in the vacation
villas, as I recall, came 2 or 3 years later. I think we stayed in those one time at one time too. That was more in the early '80s.
Your picture will solve the mystery. That's for sure.
I tried to save maps and of course I have all the ones that you would buy for the Magic Kingdom. We have a bunch of framed different era maps from the 70s and 80s. Not so much the 90s, but
right.
70s and 80s. So I don't think I have anything of the layout of the villas or the tree houses. I do have, and I'm going to find it. I'll get them scanned too. I have the blueprints for the tree houses somewhere.
Oh, I'd like to check.
I don't know that they're builders' blueprints. I think they're more for one that would want to know where to put furniture and how to decorate.
Where things go.
In other words, I don't think it's structural. It says what the building materials are and all that. But
yeah,
I do have some blueprints somewhere.
Yeah, those would be fantastic to see. I mean, that's I don't know if any of us have ever seen that before. Between, you see the castle and the studios. How have you heard of any of that? The blueprints from the treehouse villas?
I have not. I'm trying to look at some overall plans right now of the development to try to figure out where the quiet pool is. But no, that's amazing.
Well, I'll send these. Where would you like me to send them? Just to you, Todd, or
send them to me and I'll distribute them to the team.
Good.
That'll be fine.
We love the tree houses. That's one of our favorite things.
What's that?
We love the tree houses. That's
we went. We stayed there in March of '76 with my parents and just really enjoyed it. Yeah,
we were there in '80 and it was just a fabulous time. It was so unique, for its time and everything as well. So at the main outside of the pool was the main resort area with the conference center and such that they had there. How do you remember what was the name of the restaurant there? I'm wondering if they had a bite to eat there.
They had the jazz. You know what I heard? A great trombonist there, Irby Green. That would have been in '76. And
that's on the footage we have too, right?
Yeah, right. That you have that footage because I couldn't put my camera down. I think I used 2 rolls of film on that. And in fact, I haven't looked, but I put that up on YouTube, and there were a lot of people that were looking at that because if you play the trombone, I guess he's considered one of the best. So a lot of people saw it. And in fact, there was I guess it was like a staff musician that played the piano for the different jazz groups that would come through there, and they saw it and appreciated the fact that there was something from that old lounge. Because I think that I haven't been over there, but I don't think the clubhouse is at all the same if it's even there, let alone the jazz lounge.
Right.
That went up probably from from '75 until maybe the mid '80s. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that all got redone when they turned that entire area into the Disney Institute somewhere around the '90s. So it got reshaped quite a bit at that point.
Yeah, there you go.
So you've got quite a knack for identifying famous people too, because one of the other parts of the films that we restored and released was your Top of the World show with Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chops. So
yeah,
and certainly got a knack for it.
Well, we saw Marilyn May. She was a great singer, and we saw George Kirby. He was an impressionist and singer. Was a nightclub performer in Las Vegas and so forth. That was big in the '70s. So Disney had a wonderful thing going, but then we never went to the one that was where it was a staff show where they had kids that did Broadway songs and so forth when they stopped bringing in big names.
Right.
But it was a fun, and now it's got that California Grill, which is such a good restaurant, but always jammed.
Right. Oh man.
I think that's the byword for everything there now. Is everything is just always jammed.
Exactly.
Well, I think when I suppose if I were to say how different Lake Buena Vista Village is compared to today, it's just the sheer number of people. When there was a guy on a Segway that came by my little tent display during the Festival of the Masters. That's almost 10 years ago, and I don't know if it's true or not, but he said that basically that whole downtown Disney, and particularly, what's the main store that has all the Disney paraphernalia in it with all the gifts, and they have
the World of Disney store.
Well, I think he said there's no other place. Even he mentioned some place in Tokyo that doesn't do any more business than that one store does per square foot in the world. I mean,
I believe it.
And that's a lot different than 1975 when I was there and walk around and see a handful of people here and there.
We were actually discussing on the main part of the show about how quiet and just very relaxing and tranquil it was. And then by the 2000s, how it just became this packed madhouse of people. And finally,
well, and you go by the Lego store, and there's it's like a beehive. All the little kids that are, 3 deep behind a table working on something, and oblivious to all of the surrounding, numbers of people that are trying to do something else. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, it is starting to get a little bit more relaxed now that they've done more of that Disney Springs work and have kind of opened things up.
Sure.
Especially some of the walking paths now. It's much easier to get around, and it feels a little bit more like it did back then, just bigger.
Well, as I say, we keep going back. You just adapt with the times, and we like that kind of entertainment. So
absolutely,
we're not complaining. It's just how things change.
Yep. Right. Well, David, I can't thank you enough for coming along tonight. Is there anything you'd like to add from that you can think of from your trips? I mean, we've got your films, you've got slides, we've got so much to go over and let our listeners hear and show to our listeners. Anything else you'd like to add in, or think that you?
Well, I just want to thank you for including me in a podcast, and
absolutely,
and much success to you. It's quite an undertaking, but I know when you enjoy something, it makes it all worthwhile. And again, thanks a lot for including me.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And David, is there any place that people can see your work or go to purchase your work today?
Well, I'm in a local gallery here in Naples, Florida, at the Harmon Meek Gallery, and I do have a website, davidcoolidge.com, and people can see what we've been talking about. There's some current work. Some of it's been sold. Some is still available, but that's probably the best way. And you can just also Google me. I don't always pop up first. There's a few other David Coolidges in the country, so but it usually says American artist someplace.
And I will say I do have one of David's paintings in our home, and it was a gift to my wife last Christmas, and it's awesome.
Your work is actually quite remarkable.
Thanks so much.
David is not a slouch artist by any chance. He bills himself as a realistic watercolorist, and my goodness, that is such an apt description of what you do. It's incredible. And like I was saying before, your locations in Bermuda, in Italy, Williamsburg, your work is astounding, and it's all over the world, and it's just gorgeous.
Well, thank you so much for your kind words, and again, I've enjoyed it.
Well, thanks again, David. Appreciate it, and we'll make sure that everybody gets another look at your films and slides, and we'll go from there. So, once again, this was David Coolidge, and David, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Hal. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Follow Todd McCartney and Retro Disney World on Twitter and Instagram at RetroWDW, on Facebook at Retro Disney World. For all things Retro Disney World, including exclusive merchandise, visit us on the web at RetroWDW.com. On Twitter, you can find our producer, Jason Bartell from Deepwater Studios, @JasonDWS, our announcer, Andre Gardner, @AndreGardner, and follow our hosts, Hal Bowers, @GoAwayGreen, for JT Kuzier, @LS1JT, and you can find me on Twitter and Facebook, @Brian P. Miles.